Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Brian Escow Show. It is a pleasure to be with you. As always, it is Friday, January 9th at 5:02 p.m. here in Southern California. And the reason I mention the time is because it's on my mind that I recorded a video, about a 2 minute long video, which is, I think, a record for me. Because anytime I say I'm going to do a video, it'll be about 2 minutes. It's 40 minutes of nonsense, of course. But no, this morning I woke up with the intention to post a video to the Instagram for the Brian Escow Show. All right, come on. And the TikTok channel. I'm trying here. Don't mock me. I have no following on either account. So the idea is I would post clips of the show to those two accounts. And I have posted some actually in the past, but haven't been lately. I just have been in no mood to clip my own podcast. I just haven't been into it for whatever reason. I haven't been doing it for whatever reason, and I have no urge to do it. So for now, I thought it made sense to just check in with those people and just upload a video saying, "Hey, happy holidays. Checking in with you. Hope all is well. This is what I've been up to lately. This is what the show is all about." If you're not familiar, and maybe someone on one of those apps will see it and come find this podcast. But it seems stupid to say this now, but at the time, I thought maybe I could say something like, "I look so good in this outfit, I had to jump on the mic again." And I'll be honest with you, that is 80% of why I'm doing the podcast now. But the other 20% is that there is so much going on. Now, maybe it's more like 50-50. There's a lot to unpack right now. And so I wanted to say a few words about current events, but to just quickly remind you, this is kind of my journal. This is my platform to host people from diverse backgrounds to explore my political identity. I've been doing it for 4 years now, or almost more than four. Oh my God, almost five basically now. Wow. The first four of which were under the name Searching for Political Identity, as I came out of law school, came out of my mindset that I would only vote for Democrats. And as you know, I voted for Trump in 2024 and am a big supporter. And so now I'm wrestling with what that means. What is my political identity? Is it clear? And so the journey continues, but no longer sitting on the fence type of thing. And so what I've been up to lately is continuing to explore that theme. I spoke to a guy who's probably going to win the race for governor in Maine. He's an accomplished businessman, family man, construction industry guy, real estate guy. Amazing. I mean, it was one of the most proud moments, proud interviews of my career thus far, very loosely using that word. And it was great. And we talked about policy, energy, immigration, tariffs, Charlie Kirk, his relationship with Charlie Kirk. Charlie was a big fan of this guy, and he told an interesting story about his experience with Charlie. Charlie was really trying to boost him with Charlie's fundraisers. But he's super competent, super cool. And so I like what's going on with the Brian Escow Show. Talking about aliens in many recent solo episodes. Or rather, I should say, talking about the various theories about what this buzzword NHI, non-human intelligence, could be, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. Unless you're living under a rock, you're aware that something is coming, some disclosure of some sort, whether it's simply advanced technology or it's something far stranger, is happening. And so the question of what it is the question. Been exploring that, listening to some of the top podcasts in the fields, talking about those podcasts, dissecting certain topics. So that's what I've been up to lately. And by the way, I should say, and this is going to be highly relevant to what I talk when I talk about Trump and whether or not America is an empire and Venezuela and foreign policy, the foreign policy aspect of this conversation. It's going to be highly relevant to say that I've been listening to Tucker Carlson, and I don't agree with him on everything, but I think he's a great podcast host, and I think he's insightful, very insightful. And so I'm going to talk about Tucker today and his recent comments about Trump's action in Venezuela. I already gave my spin on it, So I'm going to kind of give you my take on Tucker's take. So I've been listening to podcasts and synthesizing. That's what I'm trying to do here. So that's my little pitch for you to continue listening. Okay. I do want to start with the most traumatic story in the news, which is the shooting of the killing of the woman Renee Good. I'm sorry that I didn't take the time to confirm that I had her name memorized, but I think it's Renee Good. We know what we're talking about. The ICE agent shooting the woman who was driving the SUV in Minnesota. I think I had the best. I think I had a really good take and still the appropriate take when this story broke yesterday, which was basically to say, I'm withholding judgment based on a 30-second clip. I'm very weary to pass judgment based on a 30-second clip. At the time, we hadn't seen the perspective from the agent, but that it was a tragedy and that you shouldn't be impeding a law enforcement operation. But it's a tragedy, and beyond that, who really cares? But of course, it's become rightly so a hot button issue, to say the least. And people have come in with their opinion today, saying that the video from the agent's angle, definitively proves that it was self-defense, because it proved that the woman did hit him with the car. Other people are saying, no, there's no proof that contact was made. It could have, the sound that you hear in that video could have been something else, could have been the agents or officers. I don't know why I'm interchanging the term. Doesn't really matter. Maybe his phone fell to the floor is what people are saying, and that's what you hear. Okay, I don't know. I saw people getting into a technical analysis of the self-defense law in this type of scenario, something about how the agents are trained not to put themselves in front of a vehicle. And so this may be what you call a bad shoot, because he put himself in the position and then reacted to the danger that he put himself in. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. It's a fucking tragedy. And that woman and her wife shouldn't have been there. You want to protest? Protest. But I don't know. I'm just a risk averse person, and maybe to a fault. Maybe I'm too selfish. I wrote a letter, a long email to the professor who I loved after taking 2 critical race theory classes with him in law school, and just being all jumbled by it, and basically just saying, like, either my averse reaction to this material I'm having is appropriate and rational and justified, and the Republicans are correct, or I'm just racked with guilt internally because I've just been hanging out, living my life, not paying attention to the injustices and not noticing. And so maybe I'm too um, selfish, too desensitized. I would say I'm an extremely sensitive person. So I don't know what to make of it. But these people feel very strongly that what ICE is doing is wrong. Okay, fine. Don't impede a law enforcement operation. You just don't do that. And people are really on the right picking apart the deceased woman's character, and all of that. And look, people are going to do what they're going to do. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say it's a tragedy. She shouldn't have been there. Everything else beyond that is pretty much a detail, but it's not incredibly clear to me. I mean, if I was on the jury, what I think happened is it's not clear to me that she intended to hurt the officer, even if she did hit him. I think she panicked. Her wife gave her really bad direction to flee the scene, to drive away. This is not good. They are not innocent. I think there's enough evidence to say that. They reacted poorly, and it should not have. You say this about all kind of police homicides, many of them, right? Shouldn't have ended that way. Well, yeah. Well, you don't fuck with people enforcing the law who have weapons for a reason. And I'm not saying it was justified for sure. I'm not saying it was morally right. I'm just saying you're not going to find me doing that. And maybe that's not a virtue. It's horrible. Minnesota can't catch a break. Um, I will talk about Waltz a little later on, but the next big topic, I want to take these two, maybe three big topics first. So the first one being the ice shooting. The second one is kind of this big question that Tucker Carlson framed in the introduction of one of his most recent podcasts. I haven't listened to the full thing yet, where he starts an interview with Megyn Kelly, but he did a kind of a solo intro, and he talked about Trump's move in Venezuela and how it kind of signals a shift that we are an empire and we're going to start acting like an empire. And it's drop the pretenses. To put it succinctly, if World War II, post World War II consensus was this liberal world order, international rules based order, how many times have we heard that? Where it's not about power, it's not about might, might makes right. It's about international law. And Tucker and a lot of other commentators are observing that clearly now with Venezuela and what may come in Greenland, we are saying we're an empire, we're going to act in our interest. And I touched upon this when I covered the Venezuela story initially. I said, look, the Trump worldview clearly is one of realism and pride in self and interest in self preservation, and not really going to be shackled by much in pursuit of our interests. And so, you contrast that with the left. So many commentators like God Saad, like Elon Musk, and myself, newbies to the right, are kind of just observing Trump and going, yeah, it may be different and controversial, but there is something inherently appealing about saying, no, we're going to take care of ourselves. America first. You know, it's not fuck your world. It's not fuck your rules. It's we're not going to let ourselves die because we didn't take care of our needs. This basic concept of self-preservation, and it's realism. Trump is not really being shy about it, and that's what many who support him at this point are happy about. Some, interestingly, part of the initial MAGA coalition don't like the foreign interventionism, but I think those are the people who have been souring on Trump for a while now, for the last year or two, and they're not really with Trump. They're not totally aligned with Trump. Trump is like what I just described. He's very assertive. We're going to take what we need. We're going to try to be polite. We're going to try to be good neighbors, but we're not going to be shy about having the best military in the world and having a lot of strategic advantages. And so let me talk about what Tucker Carlson said. Well, first, let me actually say that when I was in it was 2018, freshman year of law school, just trying to keep up. I mean, that first year was tough, and I loved law school, including the first year. But that first semester, particularly, it was just like, oh, what? Trying to keep up, trying to survive. And I had a click. Some of the friends I had were the people who were also part-time students going at night, a little older than most of the other students. And this one friend, I won't use his real name, but it sounds like Tucker. It's like a Tucker type name. I'll give you that. Nice guy, really nice guy. A huge MAGA guy from day one. I wasn't. I was not a Trump guy. I didn't have TDS even then, but I was very turned off by, I'll call him Billy, by Billy's, Billy was a Pepe the Frog guy, I don't know if it's fair to call him a groiper. I don't know. But he was very right, very Trump. And he would call Trump God Emperor. And like, I think he was kidding. I think he, but it would make me really uncomfortable, and it probably still would, but it's interesting, and I didn't like it at the time. Probably still would make me uncomfortable, but it is interesting. We got to talk about, is Trump like a king? Is he turning the United States into an empire? Has it always been an empire? Is he just operating without the veil of hypocrisies? So is he doing anything wrong? Is he just being a good leader, a strong leader? We got to talk about this, and this is what Tucker talked about. Pardon me, another sip of tea. As I've noted, in the last year since Trump has been back in office and has been a big debate throughout the country, he's been very assertive. You could accept this concept, this idea that he's been kingly in that I wouldn't say I've constantly defended him saying, look, he's not defying the Supreme Court. He's not actually ruling like a king, but he's a vigorous executive. He's pushing the boundaries, and I like it. And so that's really what it is. But to many, that is like in itself, this guy's acting like a king. He's not bowing to public pressure. He's not bowing to this court initially. He's fighting every way you can within the system. He's fighting the system because he believes that the system has cancer. This is what I was mentioning with Godside and Elon Musk before. They believe that the left nowadays has adopted this posture of let everyone in, let anything goes, and it's cancerous. They call it suicide. Godsad, GAD, calls it, the author and educator and intellectual, calls it suicidal empathy. It's the title of his next book. So I shouldn't do the weave. I kind of get lost myself. Let me have another sip of tea, see if I remember where the hell I was. Anyway, just the fact that he's not bowing to public pressure, that he's fighting the system as much as he is, people view him like he's a king, like he's a dictator. Of course, that's what they say. I mean, he plays into it, right? He is a competent executive. He's a strong executive. We can understand, is what I'm trying to say, why people say this about him. And then what he's doing on the world stage by being kind of cozy with Russia, not adopting that initial posture of immediate reaction of evil, bad, and wait a minute with Khashoggi. Are you seeing a theme here? The operation to get Maduro out of Venezuela. What is the theme? The theme is we're living in the real world, baby, and we're not going to be afraid to flex our muscle. We're not going to be afraid to sacrifice our reputation with, I don't want to call it the pandering media, but we're not going to make our reputation in the liberal media the number one priority. We're going to make the American people's interests our number one priority. We're going to do business with MBS in Saudi Arabia. We're going to do business with Vladimir Putin. We're going to eliminate the threats in our southern hemisphere. We're going to take oil that we need. And so Tucker's observation is, like it or not, we've crossed into a new period. And in the video I made this morning, I just kind of said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Hope you'll check it out. But we're in historic times, intense times, definitely, possibly historic times. And Tucker's observation was, look, republics turn into empires and empires collapse. Rome, for anyone who didn't pay attention in history class, ancient history. And so it's notable if you're thinking about this idea of transitioning from republic to empire. Again, you can ask, did we transition 50 years ago? Have we always been an empire? When did, you can ask a lot of questions about this. But Tucker makes some really good points, such as, well, I don't know if I definitely agree with his initial premise, but his initial premise is we've crossed the threshold, like it or not. No point in debating it. That's how he opened his podcast. And say, okay, I'll roll with you on the premise. I don't know if I with you 100%, but I'll go with you. Okay. Now that we've crossed that threshold, the analysis has to become, who wields the power in America because it's immense. An empire wields immense power. An empire has a strong leader and a large capability set. And so you don't want to have hooligans, psychopaths, or idiots or corrupt people in power. And this is a key problem, obviously. So, some good commentary from Tucker about how we're no longer living in the post-liberal, in the liberal New World Order or rules-based order, international rules-based order, post-World War II. So now any power can do what it does. And is that good or bad? We don't know. But it's happening. And Donald Trump seems to be an intelligent person. His his team seems to be very intelligent. And so maybe it's a good thing. It seems to be working out, but it's dangerous, right? I mean, it's you get it. It's playing with matches, so to speak. Matt Walsh as well has been, a lot of commentators on the right. I don't know that Tucker called international law fake and gay, but this theme of no more are we pretending that we're not strong, that we're not big, that we don't have interests that are outside of our own borders. Okay. No more effing around. Realism, common sense, self preservation. That's healthy. And I buy that. But I don't like, and it won't be my reaction to say that international law is fake and gay. That's, I can't get there. I like Matt Walsh a lot and I agree with a lot of what he says and I respect him immensely, but I am not, he's like all the way to 10 on the issues that he hones in on. And I'm like at like an 8. All right? That's pretty much all the way there, but I don't want you don't want to say that might makes right. Does might make right? Do I want to live in that world? Well, if I'm the United States, maybe, but no. Excuse me. No. Let me not be a douche here. I don't want to live in a world where the only rules might makes right. But what other great points did Tucker bring up? Well, just the fact that if you're living in that world, well, duh, you can't have. Well, what do I mean by duh? Talk about Ukraine and Russia. Suddenly, it doesn't look so bad what Russia is doing in Ukraine. Suddenly, it becomes obvious. Well, hey, Russia is a great power, looking out for its interests in its sphere of influence, and we cannot afford Russia and China to be hip to hip. And pretty much they are already, but we can't afford certainly for it to happen anymore. And so, because we're realists, because we're not hypocrites anymore, because we're not living this fucking veil of hypocrisy, we're not going to be demonizing Russia and Vladimir Putin. That makes some sense to me. I'm not ready to sell Ukraine up the river, but you gotta. This is why I voted for Trump. This is why I'm giving Trump a lot. I have been giving him Trump a lot of leeway and really like what he's doing because I don't disagree with him. I like it. I like the worldview. What are you going to live in a fantasy land? Is that going to do you any good? That's not to say you can't go too far, and I don't want him to go too far, and I hope he doesn't. And I do recognize that we're playing with matches. Fire, I should say. So it's intense times. It's historic times. There's no doubt about it. Trump is not a wilting flower. And I'm fascinated. I'm intrigued. A little scared. Maybe a little scared, but mostly excited. But no, when you have this much upheaval, I mean, everyone feels it. Everyone's talking about it. But look at Iran. I work with a guy. I used to work with him more in the previous job that I had in the company that I worked for, but he was an architect, Iranian American, older gentleman now, little, not that old, but he might be like 65. And great guy, great architect. Went to University of Tehran, born there, raised there. Came here, I want to say, probably 40 years ago, something like that. Love him. We've had many great conversations. He was, telling me about the history of Iran, and he's not a Trump guy. He didn't vote for Trump, but he doesn't hate Trump. He likes Trump, and he really likes the effect that Trump has in Iran. He really likes Trump on Iran, and so I actually saw him today, and I just gave him the look. I said, he's just like, I hope the regime gets overthrown. So yeah, man, wheels are turning. Hopefully for the I mean, that would be amazing, right? A free Persia. Now, you don't want to be. I don't want to give you this image like all countries need to be like us, and even that a theocracy is necessarily the worst thing in the world. But I will take the liberty to say that Iran is not free under the current regime, and so imagine a free Iran. I mean, what a culture! What what a difference that would make on the world stage. Wow. Big domino. Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe I give Trump too much credit, but I just like how he operates, and I'm a proud Trump voter. I remain a proud Trump voter. Now, if we get nuked, I'm changing that opinion. Okay, if we get nuked, I am probably going to retract my support for Trump. Okay, just being funny there. So Waltz steps out of politics. All I have to say about this is, man, coming from the perspective that I'm coming from out of the CRT stuff in law school and having just a knee deep understanding of it, and then to go around and realize that I see it all throughout the world and society. And, that's why I ended up going on the path that I did. I used to say her name correctly, when Kamala Harris she inherited the nomination. It was like one thing. When she chose Tim Walz, who played into every trope about critical race theory and white submission and white guilt and white being neutered and kind of this in it's just a self-hating. He perpetuated this self-hating vibe, whether he meant to or not. It's like you want to go for the dorky angle, fine. Dorky, quirky, all American, kind, neighborly, good guy, fine, fine. But you know what he did? The first thing he did was call JD Vance weird. And that immediately did not sit well with me. And I go, you're a dick. You think you can play it both ways. This is the mistake he made. This actually just hit me. Because he was hypocritical. He on one hand wanted to be the soft man, the man that could be the assistant to a woman. On the other hand, he wanted to be the bulldog who could fight back. And it just didn't work. Maybe there were other reasons why he didn't work as a candidate. But he just goofy and kind of strange. No disrespect. But the character didn't hold up. And the character is one that pisses off people who are not far left. And I know the far left makes up more of the left these days than probably any of us who are not far left wanted to. Debate about how much of the extremes control the base on each side is an ongoing debate. I certainly think the left's extremes are way more controlling than the right's extremes, but both have their moments of influence, no doubt. But Tim Walz was the ultimate expression of defeatism, of just wet rag kind of vibe. I liked how he had a moment of civility and unity with JD Vance. I think in their second debate, I recall a moment where they both acknowledged, hey, we're not that far apart. There is room we could conceivably agree on several things. And we're both nice enough guys. So there's no need for this. But you know what, Tim? Tim, you kind of started it. You called him weird, talking about his fucking his couch. I mean, I don't care if he wrote about it in his book. You don't talk about a man fucking his couch. It's out of line. So, yeah, that commercial block. Remember that? I'm a man, right? I can fix a flat tire, or which I can, by the way. But the funny thing is, I'm a pussy. I'm hardly a man. I can't tell you about cigars. I can't tell you about liquor. I can't fix anything. I'm essentially a woman with a small penis now. Trying to be Howard Stern now. My penis is so small, which it is. Too far? Too much? But anyway, Walz, yeah. I'm a man. That whole commercial, it was so like nauseating. Like Jesus Christmas. Just that was Tim Walz. And hopefully we don't see that character on the world stage again. We don't need this person who's has this inherent posture of just, I don't know. You get what I'm saying. Okay, 2 more topics and then we're done. This one was really interesting. Another governor, Vivek, or a governor in the making, hopefully. Vivek, who I love. If you're a longtime listener of the show, you know that when the 2024 presidential race really started getting underway, I actually was most interested in Vivek. I like DeSantis a lot as well. I wasn't yet ready to be a Trump supporter, even though it made all the sense in the world that I would have already been one at that point. I wasn't up until Kennedy endorsed. But Vivek really spoke to me because he was talking directly. Here's an intellectual, maybe too intellectual, maybe too like Vivek is like a fucking Vulcan. It's like, Vivek, you're too smart, man. Like you need a little more dumb in you, okay, for you to be a successful politician. I can make you stupider, Vivek. So hit me up if you want me on your team. But Vivek, being so smart and being so plugged into what's happening culturally in academia, like seeing diagnosing the problem. And remember, I happen to be in law school. I happen to take CRT themed classes. I got lucky. I saw it. And here's a guy like Vivek who, like many thought leaders on the right, saw it. And he talked about it because it was in his wheelhouse, because he's a lawyer, because he's so smart, because he's a Indian American, because he's a first generation immigrant. This guy can tell you about America and MAGA and immigration and assimilation and common sense and smart and not far right, but reasonable, which to the left will seem just like completely controversial. So Vivek, meritocracy was, now we're hailing Hitler. So Vivek was instrumental into me going, yeah, for sure. Like in class, I go, because Ted Cruz was grilling his former classmate at Harvard Law, Justice Jackson, when she was up for her nomination. Remember, he was grilling her about CRT. I was literally taking CRT themed jurisprudence in while that was happening and going and talking about it in class. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, I guess I'm like Ted Cruz. And so Vivek, I go, there's another former Democrat. I guess I'm a Republican. I guess I'm a Republican. And Vivek, very interesting cat, because he was talking about CRT in the months leading up to when he announced he was running for president in 24. I saw his. I didn't know who Vivek Ramaswamy was. No one did. But I commented on a post. I was like, totally agree, man. And he was like, yeah. And so like I had an interaction with Vivek, and then he's running for president. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, this is really cool. But then he couldn't step out of Trump's shadow and blah, blah, blah. I don't need to narrate that whole interesting process of how Trump reasserted himself. Didn't take much. I mean, no one could step out of Trump's shadow. But Vivek was interesting because he was so verbal. He was so willing to take any issue head on. He communicated so frequently. He was like Trump. Remember, they were saying that in many ways. Unafraid, prepared, evergreen, prepared, just wind him up and go, and he can do it. And so Vivek is very interesting. And one of the things he was doing that Vance does that is the social media communication. So the news is that Vivek running for clamping down now in his run for governor in Ohio has he's announced at the new year that he deleted his social media accounts because it gives a distorted view of the American people's needs, is what he said. Wow, that's interesting. Vivek has had he's gotten into some, I don't want to say trouble, but when you're that active on that many issues that are important and controversial, you're going to inevitably create some traps for yourself. And he ran into a couple people are saying, oh, he's knocking Americans' work ethic. The hard right base didn't like that. Here's some Indian guy from their perspective, which is fucking racist and ridiculous. Fuck the far right in the sense that they're racist, but I don't say fuck the far right in terms of the several good points that they have. So that's a whole conversation, but fuck the racist scumbags that are on the far right, I should say. Vivek got himself into some trouble a few times, and maybe his team just said, hey man, like, we're not getting the best return out of your activity on social media, so can it? And so, isn't that interesting? A lot of commentary is, "Oh, he can't take it. What is he afraid?" It's interesting to me. It's interesting. I mean, he was talk about Trump not being a wilting flower. I mean, this, like I said, this guy wasn't either. So maybe it's an acknowledgement that he's too willing to engage. It's just a strategy thing, probably, right? But it's notable. It's notable when a guy like Vivek Ramaswamy, whose political presence was completely predicated on, not completely, but heavily predicated on his social media presence and his interviews that he did in the media. But how much media are you getting when you're running for governor of Ohio in an off year and you're not in the presidential race anymore? Who fucking cares? So you got to do your own stuff. And I think his team must have just said, then again, maybe we take him at his word and we just say, hey, maybe he felt truly that he wasn't getting an accurate sense of the discourse, which is so actually, I'm glad I reminded myself to say this. I recall seeing a Scott Adams comment about this story about how Scott's like, where are you going to get the truth? Where's it? And so this whole discussion about, are you getting the truth on X? I would say it's definitely the place to get the closest thing to the truth online. So I agree with that, Scott. At the same time, it seems plausible that still it's kind of unhealthy for a politician to be living so hard online. So online so much. And maybe Vivek couldn't deal with it. Maybe he was addicted. We're all addicted. I mean, we're all. I mean, ask my wife. Trust me, she would send me to rehab tomorrow. Matt Walsh said in his recent interview on Tucker's podcast, spends too much time on X. Maybe Vivek was like, man, this is my one drug. I don't eat meat. I don't, he's like disciplined, Mr. Discipline, Mr. Healthy. So yeah, Vivek, he definitely needs to become stupider and a little more human. No, I mean, look, he doesn't need to do that. If I'm being serious, just in the off chance he actually sees this, which he won't, my advice would be, look, Vivek, be yourself, do your thing. You don't need advice from anybody. Trust your heart and do your thing, man. You got a good head on your shoulders. So you don't need any advice from me. Last topic here is Trump's move on housing. And this is how you know I'm not a professional broadcaster, because I didn't even like brush up on the story while I could have on my lunch break. I worked at it. What was the story again? He did an executive order or something. I think he did an executive order announcing that certain financial institutions, BlackRock, maybe it was State Street and Vanguard, I don't know, but how one of the chief complaints the far right is one of the legitimate complaints of the far right potentially, but um, across the political spectrum, but not uniformly agreed. It's controversial to do what he announced he's going to do, but he announced that he's going to basically stop these large financial institutions from buying homes, single family homes in mass and boxing people out of the market and then renting these homes to them. That's not the American dream. And so this is fascinating because, first of all, I thought Trump was the free market guy. I thought Republicans were the free market guy. So it causes you to instantly question that assumption and ask, maybe there are to Donald Trump certain things that are more important than free market capitalism. Because, right, it's free market capitalism. Let the market work. The companies grow, the companies purchase, the companies rent, whatever. It's healthy. That's a libertarian argument. Don't distort the market by regulating and changing. That inflates prices and, you know, uh, all of this economic arguments against that. When you have commodities and housing is a commodity, right? And so this was a big announcement. My post about it was Trump the magician at it again, because this is revealing his nature politically is more of a chameleon than anything. It's maybe you would call it common sense. Maybe you would call it America first. Maybe you would call it realism. Maybe his highest principle isn't the Constitution. Maybe it's positive outcomes for Americans. You know what I'm saying? It's interesting. The governor who I hosted on Wednesday night, who's an enormous Trump fan. So David Jones, go listen to that conversation because he was one of 100 people in 2024, or maybe the year prior. I don't really know, probably that year, who wrote the Republican National Platform that Trump ran on and is currently executing. Like I said, he had an association with Charlie Kirk that was really interesting. He talked about it. And he was a real estate guy. This guy built tens of thousands of units. Okay. This guy so I'm glad I asked him this question. I go, David, what do you think about this move by Trump? And he wasn't the biggest fan of it from an economic perspective. He didn't really think it makes sense, but he applauded the creativity. He applauded the flexibility. He applauded Trump's listening. So we'll see what happens. He thinks there are several creative proposals that Trump is considering, and maybe this will work. It seems to contravene what he believes makes sense fundamentally from a market perspective, but very interesting. And it reveals a lot, I think, about Trump. And to me, it's just another signal like, hey, man, you were correct, Brian, that Trump is not, don't try to pin him down. You know what I see my newest line about Trump is, don't try to put him in a box and you can't put him in a corner or something like that, right? They wouldn't put him in a box or a corner. And you could say, well, look, he's an unprincipled, and the other flip side to that coin is he's an unprincipled threat to democracy. Donald Trump is a political phenomenon. I think he's very competent. I really like him. I don't regret my vote at all. If we get nuked, I reserve the right to change that opinion. I'm not kidding. I mean, look, I really hope that doesn't happen. I don't think it will. I don't get the sense that Trump is elevating our threat. I get the sense that Trump is taking action to make us safer. And that's what it boils down to. But what's funny is, how often do you hear the refrain, it was Jefferson, right? Someone, I'm paraphrasing, of course, because my memory is shot, a little too much weed over the years, but one who would sacrifice their freedom for security does not deserve the freedom, right? And are we trading our freedom for security? All of these questions, are we living in a new age of America, an empire? Trump does raise existential questions. But at this point in time, I remain a fan, and we will just have to constantly monitor the situation. Um, I couldn't I couldn't imagine Kamala Harris being president. And so here's where we are. Let's let's stick together the best we can, guys. Let's understand that we're all human beings. Well, unless there's aliens and cyborgs, in which case, we're not all human beings, but let's assume for now that we're all human beings. Let's treat everyone the way we would want to be treated. Like, for seriously, it doesn't mean don't be a strong, active supporter of whoever you want to support politically, but let's let's recognize that we do have to face each other face to face sometimes. Life is not totally behind the keyboard. All this basic stuff. I just hope we continue into this new year because it's off to a hot start. Back to the alien thing, right? If you travel in the UFO, UAP circles, which now I do, everyone's talking about disclosure. Everyone's talking about this year, 2027 at the latest. But I have several reasons, which I've talked about too frequently in other solo episodes to recount here, that 2026 is going to be a year that we're going to learn something that we didn't know as a species. I don't know if that's true, but we're off to a hot start geopolitically. So I would just encourage everybody to be humble, be strong, be loving, do what you're going to do. I'm not asking you to change at all. I'm just saying try to, be the best version of yourself as you're doing whatever it is that you feel you need to do. All right? So, pleasure to be with you as always. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this, please share it with your friends, followers, subscribe, whatever, like it, leave a review, super helpful. But I just like doing this. And, you know, I was so nervous. I remember being like literally riddled with anxiety when I was taking those classes in my final year of law school because I knew I couldn't write a blog because it just took I can write, but I'm takes me a month to write something good that's really short. Couldn't crank out a blog on a regular basis. And I wasn't a podcast listener. I was just an alternative. I was a mainstream media everything guy. Wasn't in the podcast world at the time in 2021 when I launched this. But I knew I had to talk about what I was experiencing because I felt like the world is surely going to go back to normal any day now. And I got to talk about it now while I can because maybe there's a career in media for me, or maybe there's a passion project that I'm really going to enjoy out there. And so I got to do it. And here we are. And I'm just like, there seems to be no end in sight for the exciting, and I don't mean that in the purely positive way, just the exciting current events unfolding. So I'm optimistic. You clearly hear where I stand still on Trump for now. And I don't foresee that changing. I think this is going in a positive direction, but recognizing that these are intense times, possibly historic times. So I look forward to continuing navigating the discourse with you. And I'll see you next week. All right. Have a great weekend. Later.